All right. The Pasha is Pasha's Yisro, as you should know. And this is the Pasha that relates the Aseres Adibris, the beginning of Matan Torah. It's an interesting thing that Matan Torah is in a Pasha that's called by the name of Yisro. Yisro wasn't even Jewish. Not only was he not Jewish, but Yisro, Kohen Midian, there are two interpretations of Kohen Midian. One is that he was a minister in Midian, a ruler, a man of a high position, and the other is that he was actually a priest for Avodah Zarah. And as you learned already, surely, that when Yisro says, Ata Yodaiti ki Godel Hashem mikol ha'elohim, I know that Hashem is greater than all Elohim. So Rashi says over there that this tells us that Yisro had not missed one single Avodah Zarah. All Avodah Zarahs that were known at that time, he had tried them out. So he's a master in Avodah Zarah. And this man takes up such a central place in the Torah. Not only does he have a Seder named by him, but that in his Pasha, the Seder that's called by the name of Yisro, this is where Matan Torah and Aseres Adibros are included. And you learned many times in the Rebbe Sichos that the name of the Pasha, that is a microcosm, is representative of the whole Pasha.
So what? You said a word.
Microcosm.
Small world.
It's a synopsis. It's a sharp look at the whole Pasha. You know what synopsis is?
Sort of.
Okay.
Like an idea, like a main idea or something like that?
It's the focus. It's a very sharp focus of that represents the whole Pasha. Everything, the whole Pasha is related to that beginning. The name. Like a name. Names not only the first sentence, the first verse, it names the entire Pasha. First, I want to present a question. In the Aseres Adibris, the beginning of the Aseres Adibris is Onoichi Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Hashem is introducing himself. I'm your God who took you out from Mitzrayim. Now, what is this introduction? At that time, Eden had just experienced approximately 2 months of ongoing miracles. And before that, 6 months during which all the makis in Mitzrayim were taking place. And all that was in the name of Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Eden in the name of Hashem over the entire period. They saw the makis, they saw makis b'choros. They went out from Mitzrayim into the desert because Hashem told them to go. Moshe told them the name of Hashem. So they didn't know Hashem. They went into the Yamsuf. They jumped into the sea because Hashem told to go. All of a sudden, we have a novel introduction. I am your God. What does this mean? How's the Torah? What is the significance of these words? As if we didn't know them now. If the Torah said, like it says, you shouldn't have other gods. So we understand this is a command that Ibn says, you should only know me, you should not know others. Or if Hashem said, like Shema Yisro Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, if it told us something about him, Hashem, that he is one and he encompasses everything. So it's teaching us something about Hashem. But Onoich Hashem Elokecho, introducing Hashem, that seems to be out of place. However, the point is that in this introduction actually lies the whole principal difference between before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. And as a result, the principal difference between everything and everyone in the world and the Jewish people. Everyone in the world relates to Hashem, and how the Jewish people relate to Hashem. Someone asked me the other day, I should give him an insight, an explanation of the principle of tefillah, of prayer. He has a difficulty to relate. What does it mean? You bow down, you supplicate yourself, and you're begging. How is this stand, so to speak, with human intellect? You want something, so you're saying what you want. How does that fit into, so to speak, in the human life, in the intellect, and in terms of life's orientation? Everybody knows that in this world, if you need something, you have to find the means by which to get it. You know, how does it work? And then you go for it and you have to build it. If you need parnasa, what do? You look for a job. What does it mean, you asking for it? Is it going to come down? It's not going to come down by itself. We know that. The Torah says, that Hashem sends the bracha b'chol asher tasa, in what you do. So how does one relate to the principle of prayer? What's behind it? And then, on top of that, in prayer itself, there are different sections. There is the part where you're expressing your needs. We're asking for parnosa, for health, for a blessed year, for some brain power. We're asking for things that are useful to a human being. But a big part of davening is that you're expressing Hashem's praises. How great you are, and how good you are, how wonderful you are, and how much we are thankful to you. What is this all about? How is this fit, so to speak, in human thinking process? Are we trying to bribe God? You know, I'll give you a little bribe. I'll like in the big dinners, they introduce the donors as the best person in the world ever seen, and that way his donation increases. What is this about? So the explanation is explained to this person. The first principle of prayer is the recognition that Hashem relates directly to us and to the world. We all know Hashem created the world. But Hashem created the world, and then the world runs. Even if we understand, like the Alter Rebbe explained, that the world cannot run on its own, Hashem has to sustain it. But nevertheless, what are we in fact relating to? What are we in fact dealing with? We're dealing with the rules of nature, we're dealing with the world. Hashem created the world, he set certain rules, how he is going to run the world, but that's it. We relate to how the world is going to run. The first principle of prayer is to understand that this is not correct. As a matter of fact, Hashem actually is present and is interested, is involved in the world. He relates to it. The analogy that would help us understand this principle is, like, let's say, in a kingdom, there's a king and there are ministers. The difference between the king and the ministers is that the ministers are all appointed by the king to run their ministries, to run their offices, their secretariats, because they are experts in their field. One knows how to run the army, one knows how to run the agriculture, one knows how to run commerce. But they are doing it because of their expertise, not because they are directly involved with the people and they have a direct commitment and a relationship with the people. They're doing a job. The king, assuming that we're talking about a king in the true sense of the word, a king means someone who has committed himself to serve the people. And the people have committed themselves to follow his lead. So the king, he serves his people not because of his expertise, but because of his direct involvement and relationship with them. So when it comes to if any individual person in the country needed some help, if he went to any of the ministers, then the minister will simply judge, is it according to law Does it fit? Does it deserve that I should give him? Is it correct that I should give it to him or not? He doesn't care who asked him and this whole thing. He's not involved with the people. He looks up in the rule book. Under the rules, you should get it or you should not get it. When you go to the king, you approach it from a different perspective. A king, you come on a personal plea, not based on rules. The king is above rules, and you're not even approaching him from that perspective. You're approaching to him because I'm your subject, you're my king, and I'm asking you to help me out in this. That means that when it comes to prayer, to request, to beseeching, has to do with the fact that there is a direct commitment and a relationship between the people and the king. The country has rules and laws how it's running, but that's all below the office of the king himself. The king himself, that's a completely different relationship. A similar Indian is regarding prayer to Hashem. If we would, when we look at the world, and the world runs, even if, so to speak, Hashem set it up, Hashem is running it, but Hashem is running it from outside, so that the world runs according to the laws of nature that Hashem set up, then there is no direct relationship to Hashem. Prayer, the preparation, the recognition that one should have, has to have. And clearly this is what enables one to come to prayer, is to recognize that yes, in fact, there is a direct relationship. Hashem has committed himself to us, and we have committed ourselves to him. And therefore, we have in prayer, like I said, we have the praise part, like Psuke de Zimra, where you relate the greatness of Hashem's creation, and then the Birchas Krishma, all the good things that Hashem did, our commitment to Hashem, and then we go into Shemoneh Esrei asking for our needs. All that is in a proper order. That when we speak about the beauty of the greatness of the creation, we're not praising Hashem for his prowess. You know what prowess means? For his skill, for his ability. We're praising Hashem for what he did for us, because we recognize that this is something that he did for us. It's a personal relationship here we are approaching here. So we're thanking Hashem for having given us such a beautiful world. And all the things in it. And how he supervises everything, he provides everything should run all for the benefit, all for our benefit. This is why we say in the Psuke de Zimra, among other things, we said Oz Yoshir. Oz Yoshir in Meisha, we said the Shiras Hayam, it's called, the Shira that even said after crossing the Yam Suf. Again, because that expresses our personal appreciation of Hashem's personal involvement with us. This is what prayer is about. And then, ultimately, we come to the deepest part of prayer in Shemoneh Esrei, where we feel so close that we can ask our personal requests. Please make me wise. Please make me healthy. Please bless my year. Bless my effort. Everything else. Who can you ask such a thing from? Only from if God, if there's a special closeness. This is the meaning of Oloich Hashem Elokecha. When Hashem said in Aseret HaDibros, Oloich Hashem Elokecha, he didn't mean to tell you a piece of information that there is God. This we know well before. This was known for all the years since the creation. There was always some people that knew this. What happened at Matan Torah was a novel approach, a novel type of relationship between Hashem and us and the Yidden, where Hashem came forward and actually declared that we have a special relationship. Not just the fact that Hashem created the world and He's the boss. No, because Hashem actually relates to us directly. And this is what the Aseret HaDibur start off and say. I am your God. That changed the whole spectrum, the whole principle of the world relating to Hashem, and especially the Jewish people relating to Hashem. Before that also it was all known that Hashem created the world. But Hashem created the world is like one would say an absentee boss. He set up the rules, even though the Alter Rebbe explains the world could not run without his involvement because he has to give it sustenance and so forth. But he gives it sustenance, but he's not directly involved in relating to it. And if there are rules, like we know that there was 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, even the b'nei Noach had 7 mitzvahs. Adam Rishon got 5, I think, and Noach got 2 more. Altogether, they had 7 mitzvahs. And one of the 7 mitzvahs is that you must not worship idols. Avodah Zarah was forbidden to Ben Noach also. So they also knew about God. And they also knew that you must have civil laws. You're not allowed to steal and to rob and to kill and all that. That's clearly stated in the Torah. But that all, these are all rules by which the world can run. It's not an offense. It's not because of Hashem's presence that you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it because you're not allowed to destroy Hashem's world. And Matan Torah was a totally new phenomenon. Hashem said, Onoichi Hashem Elokecha. I am here. Forget about the world. I'm here. I am with you. And now, from now on, all the things that you do, from the loftiest and the highest to the simplest and the lowest, like don't steal and don't rob and don't kill, all of that relates, you do because you're relating to me. Not because you're relating to the world and you're safeguarding the welfare of the world. That's why in the Aseret HaDibur we have these totally opposite, very different levels of expressions. And all kind, the highest principles of faith, and at the same time, do not lie, do not steal. All that is also in a sense of it. Because all of these things had to be repeated, not because they repeated. That's completely new. Because now they're not based on what they're not part of the world. They're based on Hashem's presence. This is the principle of Matan Torah. This is how Matan Torah changed the world, even though, as you know, as we mentioned before, that Hashem was known before, and there was Torah learning before, and there were, even the Oves did all the mitzvahs before, but it was mitzvahs without Hashem coming forth and giving them a mitzvah. They did it because of their own sake. Here, there was a complete Hashem's entry, so to speak, into the world. This is what it says Rashi, I think, brings it down also that at Matan Torah Hashem had nullified, had done away with the separation between the upper world and the lower world. There was a separation before. That this world was in its level, and then there was the Hashemayim were in a higher level. And there was no interaction between them. And here at Matan Torah, that boundary, that separation was broken. Vayired Hashem al Hasina, Hashem came down to Hasina. Now we will be able to go back and understand certain other things that took place and are expressed in relation to Matan Torah. The first one, like I mentioned before, the fact that Matan Torah and Aseres HaDibros are included in a parsha that's called by the name of Yisro. I mentioned before, Yisro, through many of his years, Yisro was an Oved Avodah Zarah, but not just an Oved Avodah Zarah. He was the top. He was the teacher of Avodah Zarah. He was the biggest researcher. He knew everything about Avodah Zarah. Master scholar of Avodah Zarah.
PhD.
Now, Avodah Zarah, although by us this seems to be a completely strange phenomenon, what Avodah Zarah. The Rambam explains that Avodah Zarah originally came about through a very rational, scholarly approach. The Rambam explains that at a certain period, in the beginning of time, and then it repeated itself at various intervals, people began to study the creation, the world, and they realized and recognized that the interdependency, how the various parts of the world depend on each other. Like the earth could not be a vibrant earth if not for the sun and the moon and the stars. Besides that, the sun, that they provide light and warmth, everything in the world is a result of that warmth, because the rain comes from water that rises from the sea. And it rises from the sea because of the warmth of the sun. So if you take that away, then the whole cycle of life, natural lifestyle, I would say, ceases. So people understood, and they studied this whole phenomenon, and they realized how all of these interdependencies, and realized that the sun, for instance, is of great and important service to the world, without which the world cannot survive. The moon, so great importance, all the stars, every one of the stars has its particular function, without which the world will be completely different. And therefore they said that these are what's called the shamoshim. These are the servants that Hashem put up in the sky, in the horizon, to serve and keep the world going. And they are they are fulfilling, so to speak, Hashem's mission. Hashem gave each one of them a mission. What they should supply the world, and how should keep the world going and alive. Therefore, they are Hashem's messengers, emissaries. They're shluchim to fulfill Hashem's command. And as such, they have to be respected for being Hashem's shluchim. So you could see where that can lead. The son has to be respected for doing Hashem's mission. The next step after that you can start praying to the son and ask, I'm praise the son. And everything else. What is the real truth? The real truth is that the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the various powers that affect the world do not have their own will to do this. They are all doing it by Hashem's action. It's like a person chopping wood with an axe. So who is the chopper, the axe or the wood chopper, the person who swings the axe? The person who swings the axe. The axe does not deserve any thanks, appreciation. Look how well you chopped this wood. The axe didn't do anything. The same thing, everything that maintains the world, all the natural forces that maintain the world, they're all in the hands of Hashem, and they're all being acted. Hashem is acting with them as tools. Therefore, they do not at all deserve any kind of recognition, any kind of praise, any kind of thank you. So that was the primary error that led to Avodah Zarah. That in short order, it developed into real Avodah Zarah. They started saying that that Hashem wants that we should respect His shamoshim, His messengers. And then they started, the Rambam describes how this thing developed, and it's all can deteriorate very quickly, and it's all logical. They started building temples in honor of various stars.
It took a couple of generations, right?
Not necessarily. Once it goes into a cycle and the people begin to believe in it, it boomerangs. But originally it started, as I said, with some kind of rationale, some kind of an insight, understanding what's going on. Now, this interdependence, as I mentioned, this interdependency, I mentioned just this, the obvious ones, the heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars. But really, there are also, obviously, as we know, that there are also spiritual forces that are affecting the world. Like we say, there is Yisro, Yisro, Atzilus. All those also have direct influence into the world. So the very great scholars amongst them, such as Yisro, they recognized all the various influences that are taking place in the world, physical and spiritual, all the way to the highest spheres. There was only one error in their whole understanding. And this error transformed from light into darkness. That all of these forces, they are independent forces. Of course, there's all of these influences, but they're not independent. That they couldn't see. But there's a super being that runs all of this they couldn't see. These are all different forces. We learned in the previous Parsha, the Parsha before the previous, or even before that, when Parai said, when Moshe Rabbeinu came to Parai and told him, Hashem, the God of the Yehudim, of the Yidden, or Ivrim, sent me to you and said you should let the Yidden go. So Parai said, who is Hashem? Me, Hashem? I don't know Hashem. What does it mean, I don't know Hashem? It means Parai knew also all kinds of different gods, so to speak, all kinds of different powers. But Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said, means that which is above all nature, completely above all the natural influences. He's not above, he's above all that. That Parai said, I don't know anything like that about. Le'edait is Hashem, I don't know that, I don't know about. And I'm not ready to accept it, and I'm denying that existence. Natural forces, yes, and all kinds of natural forces, and they're all gods, so to speak. But this, above that, I don't know anything about.
So the Avodah Zarah always related to natural forces, natural phenomena?
It starts with natural forces. And then then they started making all kinds of forms to represent the various stars. It's all representing certain powers. The god of fire, the god of water, the god of winter, the god of summer, all kinds of different things. So Yisro, as I said, Yisro, who was the master scholar, he knew and understood all of these layers and on top of layers of influences and power. The entire spectrum of Avodah Zarah, to the highest levels, Yisro had studied and understood. Until he reached the point where he realized that this is all false. There are these influences, but they're not independent influences. This is what Yisro said when he came. Now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods. What kind of phrase is that for Hashem? This was a discovery that came after a lifetime of research on the part of Yisro, in the groping in the dark, until he came to realize that God is really above the whole natural process. And this was shown to him. He really recognized it from the observing all the miracles that Hashem did for the Yidden. In other words, by Yisro, there was this real experience, real phenomenon. What it says in Tanakh, Yisrael ha'oir mitoy ha'choshech, and Yisrael ha'chochmo min ha'sichlus, which means that when do you recognize? When does the Yisro, the supremacy, the special quality of light recognized? When it comes from darkness. When is the supremacy of Chochmah, of true Chochmah, recognized? When it comes from Sichlus. Sichlus is the Chochmah, the perverted Chochmah of Avodah Zarah. It's called Sichlus. Yisro was privy to that recognition. This is illustrated with the following experience. If we would project the following experience, we will readily see what this means. I always speak about this light and dark. And light is a wonderful thing. They come into this room, and there is light. We instantaneously see everything that's in the room. What do we see? You see tables and chairs and books and people. And so we're not in the dark. We're not going to walk into a table. We're not going to stumble on a chair. We know exactly what's going on. Fine. So, with the following exercise, we'll recognize the real effect of light. Let's say you come into this room, and it is dark, but it's pitch dark. You see absolutely nothing. So what do? If you want to know what's going on over here, the truth is that you can find out every last detail of the room without light. How can you do it? Walk around the room and feel your way. You can identify absolutely everything, where the windows are, how big the windows are, everything in the room by feeling it. And not only that, you can actually recreate in your mind, so to speak, the layout of the room. Not only that, you can imagine what the room can be used for. Such a room, it can also refer to such a layout. Here's what we can do for it. You can construct all kinds of different images and ideas, and they will be correct. All in the dark, all by feeling your way. So now that you have identified all the pieces of furniture in the room, in the dark, when the light gets switched on suddenly, then the light serves a completely different purpose. When you switch on the light is no longer used just to tell you where the tables are and where the chairs are. It reveals to you a different level of what there is to see. Not just the physical setup of the room. It reveals to you a different level. It reveals to you the idea behind all of this. It reveals to you that there was a human being who conceptualized all of this. The thought behind it. That which you, in the dark, didn't surmise at all. You could project what it can be used for, but you didn't see the idea. Now when you put the light on, everything comes to life. Completely different phenomenon, different experience. And when does that experience come to light? When do you experience it? If first you went through the struggle of finding out, recognizing all the lower level, the physical level, that you can find out with touch in the dark. That's when you first begin, and the light comes on afterwards, and you see what light adds on top of knowing all the details. Without this process, if it was never dark, if it's always light, then you don't pay attention to the special quality of light. Then all the light does for you is to tell you, there's a chair over here, don't fall over it. Don't stumble. Don't walk into the table. It doesn't give you that wholesome view and experience that light is really designed to do. Thus, Yisro, and the same thing is Chochma min HaSichus. When is Chochma appreciated? True Chochma not only appreciate in terms of, oh, I'm glad I have it, but you see what it reveals that is a completely different realm than the sichus. That comes after you go through the sichus. Yisro went through the entire process of the sichus, of all the forces and the powers that influence the world. And he knew the whole structure. And then, when he realized that this is all in the dark, all of a sudden he realized something completely different, something that is not part of that structure. Something that is completely above the structure. The intangible part of it. The godly presence above it. Which is not tangible, which is not identifiable in the natural process. This is the real chokhmah. This is the real light. That which is intangible, that which you cannot identify with by feel, by touch. So Yisro, with his experience, by coming min hasichlus, he was able to bring out this principle that there is something completely superior, that is not involved, that is not identifiable, not recognizable from the mitzvahs of the world itself, something higher. This is what brought about Matan Torah. This is what it says. It says that if not for Yisro, Matan Torah Yisro had to be present here. There was Moshe Rabbeinu, there was Aaron, there were all the great people. Yisro was necessary to bring about Matan Torah. Because Yisro had expressed this special recognition that comes as a result of having gone through the entire process in the dark. Then you recognize the true meaning of light. They say the pshat Onoiche Hashem Elokecha, that what happened Matan Torah, even though you knew about Hashem before, but before you knew about Hashem as the creator of the world, as the boss, as the ruler, all kinds of different things. Now you know Hashem Elokecha as something completely different. Independent of all that. I am involved with you. You are going to serve me. You're going to be my nation. Completely different phenomenon. Breaking through all the worldly barriers, the natural barriers.
Rabbi it's no called Shituf. He recognized the God is Savad all. That he did Yisro. That he recognized the God is about all the gods.
No, at that point he rejected the Avodah Zarah. At that point he rejected the Avodah Zarah. He came to Moshe, he came to the Midbar to be Nizgayer. He says, this was all darkness, this was all folly. You know, it's sichlus. Sichlus means folly. Foolishness. This is not correct. He completely rejected this whole thing.
Sichlus is not coming from the word sechel.
No. Sechel is with a sin, and sichlus is with a samach.
Ah, sorry.
Sechel, yeah, it's the only difference between the samach and the sin, but it's a completely different word. This also explains to us the significance, and Rashi brings down that B'chol ha'om roim, later on you'll learn It says, "V'chol ha'om royim," all the people saw. The poetry says, it says, "Royim," as ha'koiles was ha'lapidim. They see the sounds, the sounds, and the lapidim, and the flames, the flickering flames. So this whole Gemara, there are two opinions in the Gemara, and it's a very rich sikha from Rabbi on this. But just one snippet, Rashi brings down, you'll see later, that at Matan Torah, there was a very special experience. Royin as Hanishma. Royin as Hanishma means that they saw that which is heard. Because it says, Royim as HaKoilis, Royim as Hanishma. And I said there is a very broad discussion, there are different opinions in the Gemara. Just want to explain this one Nekuda here. Royin as Hanishma, they saw that which is only audible, which can only be heard. So the Rebbe in that Sikha explains, what does this mean, Royin as Hanishma? By a person, there we have two faculties. We have sight and hearing. Sight applies, in our experience, only to physical items, to physical objects. Why only to physical objects? Because these are things which are at our level. And they're tangible and we can see them. We cannot see things that you hear. What things do you hear about? Things, spiritual things, that you only know because you understood them. Spiritual things that you know through understanding that you cannot see. Because it's just something that understanding means is like hearing. And I'm getting the idea in my mind, like hearing.
But like darkness or spiritual thing, darkness, like
light. Right. Well, we will have to discuss it another time, but I just want to point like this. Darkness, we don't see. Darkness is, the principle of darkness is that you don't see anything, not that you see darkness. Light, the truth is that light, we don't see light itself. We see light, how it deflects from objects. We don't look at light itself. This is just a brief answer to your question. Really, there's a very much broader discussion about this. Okay? But the light that we see is not light itself. As a matter of fact, the sunlight is coming from the sun. If you rise up like this, what do you call it? The Sputniks or the satellites. If you fly in the satellites, it's perfectly dark. What? Only when there is a deflection, that's when you get light. The sunlight, as it comes from millions of miles, you don't see light. They see light only when it hits an object.
So the light that we see is only the objects that are revealed?
Right. So that we see. Ruchnisike things we don't see. This is called hearing. At the time of Matan Torah, they were able to see those things that we normally only hear. That was because Hashem revealed Himself, and they were able to see clearly, like you see a physical object. They were able to see spiritual things. At Matan Torah, spiritual world was a reality to them.
which eyes or is like in the mind? How you can see which eyes spiritual things?
they were able to see with eyes, except that the eyes that we are talking about, our eyes are made to identify physical objects, articles. When we say that they were able to see with eyes, the point is that it wasn't just an imaginary thing that they projected that they are seeing. What they actually saw, the reality of it, which means the following. They saw the physical world. They saw the physical world because that's what our eyes are able to see. Except when they looked at the physical world, what did they see?
Godliness.
They saw a godly power. They saw a godly presence in it. They didn't see the physical world as we see it, as an entity unto itself, because of its physical presence. They saw only the godly presence in it. Therefore, with their flesh eyes, in the flesh, in the physical world, they only saw a godly revelation, a godly presence. That's it called the royim is anishma, that which normally is only understood. We always speak about that in every object there is a godly force that maintains it, keeps it going, keeps it alive, keeps it existent. That we only understand. They were able to see it. And again, this is representative of the principle that we explained before, that the whole inyan of Matan Torah is that we recognize, recognize Hashem's presence and Hashem's involvement in the world. And that is what Matan Torah changed. Before that, as we said before, Hashem was known throughout the ages, but Hashem's presence in the world, that He is involved so that you can come and praise Him for creating the world, you can come and pray to Him, that didn't exist. This was innovated at Matan Torah. And at Matan Torah we have a whole spectrum of activity. Lesignev, Lesitzach changed completely. It's not the same that existed for Ben Noach. In Bnei Noach means you should not steal because you're destroying the world. And as it says you should not steal because Hashem told you not to steal. In Hashem's presence. It's a completely different principle. So, to summarize and to bring this whole discussion back to us in a manner that would be that would illuminate, so to speak, bring light into our life, illuminate our path. It is what I explained before, that the biggest thing that we have and the principle of our lives is not just that we are doing righteous things, moral things, good things, but actually Hashem is with every Yid. And the minute we wake up in the morning, we woke up, it's a natural phenomenon. Everybody wakes up in the morning. Goes to sleep and wakes up. What does waking up mean to us? We don't say good morning world. We say good morning Hashem. It's a completely different life approach. We recognize our first glance with open eyes, royin as anishma. We see right away that which we understand. We see Hashem restored our neshama to us. So we say, Moedani. This places us in a completely different path in life, gives us a different sense of purpose and meaning and also confidence and support. We can always, that whenever we call to Hashem, Hashem is there with us to listen to us. B'yem koreinu. We can stand up and daven. We can stand up and daven. And we're not davening to the wall, we're not davening to the air, we're davening to Hashem. Because He has declared Himself to be our God. When you learn Torah, we're not learning Torah because it's a wise thing and it challenges our mind and gives us an understanding. All of this is true. But we're also learning to understand how do we understand Hashem's presence in the world. How does the Hashem look at the world? How does Hashem want us to look at the world? That's what we're learning in Torah. This is ultimately the meaning that Hashem had lifted us from Golus, from servitude in Mitzrayim. He lifted us up from being part of the natural world and gave us a perspective, gave us a path that sets us apart and independent of the natural world. Even though we live and act in the natural world. But we have a perspective, an understanding, and a path that is not limited, that is not compelled by the natural world. It's directed by Hashem, directed by the Torah and directions. This is why we can sit and learn Torah and learn halachas, such principles in Torah that we will not encounter in our practical life. Many of the things that you learn, especially in Gemara, are not things that will have a practical application in our lives. And yet, we learn it. We learn it with the same diligence as you would learn anything that is pertinent to us. The reason is because as you learn it, you get to know Hashem's presence in the world. And Hashem's presence in the world is in every aspect of life. And this gives us a completely different strength to carry out our mission in the world, on our lives in the world. We have the freedom and the privilege to design and project what we want to do, how we want to do it, on the basis of the Torah, without being hampered. And hampered means limited by the rules of the world. To give us a very simple illustration that everybody experiences. There are 7 days in the week. 7 days in the week. Everybody knows there are 7 days in the week. We Eden take one of these days and say, this day doesn't exist in the world. 1 in 7 days don't exist in the world. And we've lived this way for thousands of years. No matter what. Why? Not because it makes sense from the worldly perspective. The world, the more you work, the more you make. But we had the power and the vision to see that that's not what's going to define for us our world. Hashem's presence is going to define. Hashem's presence is that there are 6 days and there's a 7th day. This is how we mark up our calendar. And this is how we live. For thousands of years under all kinds of circumstances. And Mitzvah Hashem, with this strength and this approach, we're going to carry through the remaining moments of the Golos until we get into Geula Shlema.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Mama.